Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
We're so glad you're here with us.
Yeah, and a quick note before we jump in. Today's material is actually from a SpeakDuo lesson, so you can go to speakduo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls and, become more confident in your speaking abilities.
Exactly. And just to set the stage for you today, we are completely bypassing the basics. This deep dive is designed strictly for advanced English learners.
Right, no simple vocab today.
None at all. Our goal is to master 15 high-level idioms by comparing them to simpler alternatives. And we'll practice them in professional and testing contexts so you actually know how to use them.
Which is so important because, a major part of advancing your English is being able to describe hard work without just saying, well, I worked hard.
Right, that's just so flat it doesn't tell a story.
It really doesn't. Like, if I'm prepping a major corporate report, I wouldn't just say I'm preparing. I might say I am doing the spade work.
Oh, that's a great phrase, doing the spade work.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to a phrase like laying the groundwork, they seem similar, but the nuance is pretty different.
How so?
Well, spade work specifically highlights the unglamorous, hard, really detailed preliminary tasks. Think literal farming, like digging into hard, muddy soil with a spade before you can even think about planting a seed.
Oh, I see. So it's the invisible effort, like organizing vendors or gathering permits.
Exactly. So in a workplace conversation, you might tell a colleague, I'm doing the spade work for the new research project, gathering the raw data so you do the analysis.
Nice. It really gives you credit for the tedious part of the job that, makes their later success possible.
It definitely does, which transitions perfectly into the next phase of a project, which is doing the heavy lifting.
Right, doing the heavy lifting. Now, I feel like people just use that to mean doing the most work.
They do, but there is a vital distinction there. Heavy lifting refers specifically to handling the most difficult or important part of the task, not necessarily the highest volume of work.
Oh, okay. Let me try an analogy here to connect the two. So if a project is building a house, doing the spade work is digging the muddy trench for the foundation, while doing the heavy lifting is actually installing the massive steel beams.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Yeah, and if you're taking an exam like, say, IELTS Speaking Part 2, you could use this to describe a group experience. You could say, in our university group project, my classmate Carlos did the heavy lifting by writing the main theoretical draft.
That's a textbook IELTS answer right there.
Yeah.
But what happens when that heavy lifting is purely mental? That brings us to our third phrase, which is rack one's brains.
I use this one all the time, but how is it really different from just brainstorming or thinking hard?
The nuance is the struggle. Racking your brains implies this intense mental exhaustion when you're trying to remember a specific forgotten detail, and the history is kind of dark.
Wait, really? Like the medieval rack?
Yeah, exactly. The torture device where people were physically stretched.
Yeah.
So metaphorically, you're stretching your memory to the absolute breaking point.
Wow, okay, that is a very vivid image. But it makes sense. So speaking to your boss, you could say, I racked my brains all weekend, but I still couldn't remember the name of that contractor we used last year.
Yep, it instantly shows them how hard you tried.
Now, moving from the effort we put in at work to the money we spend in our lives, which, let's face it, is a huge topic in office small talk and on IELTS exams, let's look at pay through the nose.
Pay through the nose. People think it just means overpaying, but the nuance is a feeling of being trapped, desperate, or slightly cheated, usually because of poor planning.
Right, like it physically hurts to hand over the cash.
Exactly. So picture a chat with your boss. You'd say, because we booked the conference flights at the last minute, we had to pay through the nose for economy seats.
Ugh, the worst feeling. But it contrasts really nicely with our next phrase, beyond my financial reach. That one's basically just saying it's too expensive, right?
Sort of, but beyond my financial reach is way more formal. And it focuses strictly on your personal budget constraints at that moment, rather than saying the item itself is overpriced.
Oh, I like that. It's much more objective. So for an IELTS speaking example, if I'm describing a desired object, I could say, that beautiful downtown apartment or even a high-end laptop was simply beyond my financial reach right now, so I opted for a more affordable model.
Spot on. It sounds incredibly mature and composed. But Let's swing to the complete opposite end of the formality spectrum with a monkey apiece.
A monkey apiece. That sounds like highly informal British slang.
It is extremely informal British slang.
But-
It basically just means 500 pounds each. It's used mostly in casual conversation to refer to splitting a large cost.
So you'd say something to your colleagues like, we completely split the bill, but it ended up costing us a monkey apiece for the last-minute train tickets to London.
Exactly. That's a fun one. But let's move on from financial transactions to social interactions, how we talk about the people we meet. First up, break the ice.
Which is starting a conversation, but with a specific goal, right?
Right. The nuance is reducing tension or awkwardness in a stiff environment.
So telling a colleague about a new client, I might say, I told a small joke to break the ice before we jumped into the heavy contract negotiations.
Perfect. It clears the path. And once the ice is broken, you often find yourself talking to people from all walks of life.
I love that phrase. From all walks of life, I mean, you could just say a diverse group, but all walks of life vividly emphasizes different social, economic, and cultural backgrounds all converging in one place.
It really does paint a picture.
Yeah, so for IELTS Part 2, describing an event, you could say, at the Community Volunteer Fair, I met people from all walks of life and really enjoyed hearing their unique stories.
Excellent use of imagery there. Now, sticking with people's backgrounds, let's compare two phrases. Come from humble beginnings versus orphan boy made good.
Okay, wait. Orphan boy made good. Let me push back on that a bit. Doesn't that sound incredibly dramatic for the modern workplace?
Oh, absolutely. It's completely dramatic.
I mean, I can't imagine saying that in a meeting.
No, you wouldn't use it in a business meeting. Orphan boy made good is almost a cinematic archetype. It's very specific about someone from a difficult background, literally lacking parents, who achieves respected community status, like a local doctor or charity runner. It's for storytelling.
Okay, got it. So it's for local legends, not your accounting manager.
Right. But come from humble beginnings is perfectly professional. It just means starting with few advantages and achieving success. Like, you could say a successful bakery owner came from humble beginnings.
That makes total sense. Now, wherever people from all walks of life gather, especially at work, there's always drama. Which brings us to office politics. Let's start with a Johnny-come-lately.
Oh, this one is brutal. It's basically a newcomer, but the nuance is highly negative.
Like they haven't earned their place yet.
Exactly. It describes someone who quickly tries to gain influence or take charge without having the usual experience or earning the team's respect.
Ouch. So complaining to a colleague, you'd say, the rest of the team really resented that Johnny-come-lately who tried to take on a leadership role without asking anyone else.
Yeah, nobody likes that guy. Now, let's contrast two phrases about visibility. Man of mystery versus keep a low profile.
Well, man of mystery sounds like a personality trait, like an enigmatic person whose nature is to keep things secret. Like, he just moved into the building and stays so quiet, he's a real man of mystery.
Exactly, it's just who they are. But keep a low profile is an intentional tactic. It's an action you take to avoid attention for privacy or safety.
Right, so speaking to a boss, you'd say, after the corporate merger rumor started, she kept a low profile to avoid media attention.
Spot on. But what happens when keeping a low profile isn't enough and someone just vanishes? They have flown the coop.
Flown the coop, so left or disappeared.
Yeah, but with the implication of a sudden escape from a confined situation or heavy expectations. Much like literal chickens escaping a yard.
Nice. So, in an IELTS response about a family member, I might say, my cousin suddenly flew the coop last year and moved to another country for work without telling anyone.
It paints a great picture of a sudden exit. But what happens if they don't escape the pressure and they just break down? That's when they come unglued.
Come unglued. So, worse than getting angry.
Much worse. The nuance is a sudden, complete loss of emotional control under pressure, a total breakdown.
Yikes. So describing an incident to a coworker, I'd say, I saw our manager come unglued at the presentation when the technology completely failed.
Yeah, that is a rough day at the office.
For sure. Okay, well, it is time to test your memory with a quick quiz. I'm going to read a question about a phrase and 3 options, A, B, and C.
Pay close attention to the context, everyone.
And feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer before we reveal it. Let's jump in. Question 1 for the phrase, rack one's brains. Which sentence uses the idiomatic phrase, rack one's brains correctly based on context? Option A, the professional neuroscience clinical researcher was instructed to rack one's brains during the cognitive medical scan. Option B, the deeply frustrated young retail clerk aggressively managed to completely drop a white line. Or Option C, after hours of trying to recall the forgotten password to the administrative server, he finally stopped racking his brains. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is C. Remember our example about trying to recall the name of that contractor. Racking your brains is about that intense, painful mental struggle to remember something.
Nailed it. Question 2. Select the context where the phrase doing the spade work is most appropriately used figuratively. Option A, before presenting the final architectural blueprint to the City Council, the urban planner spent weeks doing the spade work of gathering zoning data. Option B, the professional landscaping and garden excavation contractor was instructed to start doing the spade work during the backyard trenching. Or Option C, the incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly buy some large systems. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct choice is A. Just like gathering raw data for the research project we talked about earlier, doing the spade work figuratively means handling those unglamorous detailed prep tasks. Awesome. Moving on to question 3. In which situation does someone accurately utilize the advanced phrase, pay through the nose contextually? Option A, the professional otolaryngology clinical physician was instructed to examine paying through the nose during the sinus exam. Option B, because they waited until the night before the holiday flight to purchase tickets, they had to pay through the nose for economy seats. Or Option C, the completely terrified young wilderness traveler unexpectedly noticed an exceptionally massive, heavy tool chest. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer. It's definitely option B. Remember the last-minute conference flights? Paying through the nose is all about that painful overpaying due to a desperate situation.
Right. Okay. Question 4. Which response best demonstrates the advanced phrase, flown the coop figuratively? Option A, realizing that the financial audit was scheduled for Monday morning, the fraudulent manager cleaned out his desk and had flown the coop. Option B, the professional poultry farming livestock caretaker was instructed to check if any chickens had flown the coop during the storm. Or Option C, the incredibly clumsy warehouse inventory clerk accidentally managed to quickly catch that white balance. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
And the answer is A. Flown the coop figuratively means a sudden escape from a high-pressure situation, just like your cousin who moved to another country without telling anyone.
Exactly. Doing great, guys. Question 5. How would a professional accurately use the phrase, do the heavy lifting contextually? Option A, the professional warehouse logistics forklift operating technician was instructed to do the heavy lifting during the pallet loading. Option B, the completely confused amateur theater group unexpectedly decided to proudly paint a clean frame. Or Option C, while junior team members assisted with formatting, the lead developer did the heavy lifting by writing the core algorithmic logic. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The correct answer is Option C. Think back to Carlos writing the main theoretical draft for the university project. It's about doing the most intellectual difficult part, not literal physical lifting.
Beautiful. Question 6. Which scenario perfectly illustrates the meaning of the phrase, a Johnny-come-lately, contextually? Option A, the professional historical reenactment colonial actor was instructed to play a Johnny-come-lately during the Heritage Festival. Option B, having joined the company only last month, the new associate acted like a Johnny-come-lately by trying to override years of established protocol. Or Option C, the incredible clumsy hotel maintenance worker accidentally managed to completely drop that red tray. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
The answer is B. Just like that resentful team dealing with the arrogant new hire, a Johnny-come-lately is an inexperienced newcomer trying to wield unearned influence.
Last one. Question 7. Which sentence accurately utilizes the advanced phrase, keep a low profile, contextually? Option A, aware that the corporate merger rumors were attracting intense media scrutiny, the executive decided to keep a low profile until the official announcement. Option B, the professional architectural drafting blueprint designer was instructed to keep a low profile during the ceiling height survey. Or Option C, the deeply confused young kitchen assistant accidentally managed to quickly slice a fresh piece of profile. Feel free to pause the podcast here if you need to think about the answer.
It's Option A. Keeping a low profile is a deliberate tactic to avoid attention, perfectly modeled by the executive avoiding the media during those merger rumors.
And that wraps up the quiz. How did you do? If you got most of those right, you are well on your way to sounding incredibly natural in your advanced English conversations.
Absolutely. And I just want to leave you with a deeper thought to mull over today. Idioms are essentially the ultimate test of cultural fluency. I mean, they aren't just vocabulary, they're tiny time capsules that encode a society's history, humor, and values right into everyday speech. Mastering them doesn't just make you sound advanced, it really means you've decoded how native speakers view the world.
That is beautifully said. Congratulations on upgrading your English toolkit today. Challenge yourself to use one or two of these phrases this week, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive. Keep exploring.